Hey everyone, Eggman here with another video, and today we've got a top 16 breakdown for the booster boxes online treasure cup from this past weekend. They had 512 players, 9 rounds of Swiss, and notably this is the first large-scale EB02 legal event in North America as well. So really excited going over it. It is like a smaller set, but obviously we have a completely different pie chart from what we've been seeing previously in OP10, and again, excited to go over it. So real quick before we get started, if you guys are new to the channel, we do make a lot of content for the One Piece card game, so make sure to hit that like and subscribe if you want to see more in the future. And then also big shouts to the booster box for not only running the event but also helping me getting these lists. I would not be able to make this video without them. And also, if you want to find any of these deck lists or many others, you can find them on my website Eggman Events, which is linked in the description as well. But jumping on into it, of this event, we did have a top 16 of 7 of the new EB02 Monkey.D.Luffy, 2 of the older purple Monkey.D.Luffy, and then singles of Zoro, Reiju, Bonney, Eustass Kid, the yellow one from OP10, Vegapunk, Rob, Lucci, and Nami as well. So again, a lot of variety, but we also do have a clearly best deck in format, I think, right now compared to where we were in OP10, where it's a little bit of a rock, paper, scissors format. Also, we see that none of the 3 leaders that were kind of dominating OP10 are in this top 16 for this event, being Shanks, Teach, and Doflamingo. So a little bit surprising to see those, just go from very, very strong to just not in the meta because one deck got released, which I think is really interesting. 2 of those decks are getting new star decks, though, at the beginning of June, so that could be different from us in OP11 compared to Japan as well. But it's really interesting to see just how much this deck has been doing well as well. So I know some people thought that, maybe it wasn't like the deck that's best in format, or also that it might be a little bit expensive to play day one. But so far, I think it's pretty clear that Green Purple Luffy is a strong deck and in contention for the best deck in the game right now. So we're obviously going to need to see some more events for that too. But yeah, clearly a strong deck. So we will be going over the top leader for each one of our top 16, and we do have a good variety, right? We do have 8 different leaders that we're able to get. Actually, I think it's 9 different leaders to get into the top 16. So we will go over them. But again, if you guys want to see any of the other deck lists that we don't go over, you can find them on my website, Eggman Events, linked in the description. So starting off with our first place list, which is StrawHatsAreCool's version of the green and purple Luffy. Now, one thing about this deck is that there is like a core amount of cards, right? I think it's very clear that you need 4 copies of Sanji and Pudding, right? This card is pretty much the best card in the deck inherently. The fact that it's a 5-drop 7k that turns into a 7-drop 7k so easily is great. The fact that it mitigates your Dawn minusing effect. The fact that it like draws a card pretty much every time after the first one is very, very strong. There is then also a kind of our game ender, which is the secret rare Luffy, right? We play a couple copies of this. Most people I think are on Luffy Taro right now. I think it was a bit of a decision point, but most people I've been seeing play this card at 1 or 2 copies just to, you don't necessarily need to play Sanji Pudding on 5. Sometimes we want to play it on 7 with Luffy Taro, just to make it so that we are just a little bit better at putting 2 bodies on the board and making it difficult for your opponent to answer them. We do have like some surge consistency, right? We have our Nami, we have our when you're at sea you fight pirates, we've got the Merry Go, and then after that we just kind of have just generically purple and green Straw Hat stuff, right? So we are playing 2 copies of the Zoro, which I really do like this card. It's one of our actual few interaction cards, so I usually play it a couple more copies, but it's not searchable off this because it's a green card, not a purple card, so that's impactful. I've seen a lot of people playing the 3-drop Usohachi from OP5 just to have like another body to play kind of aggressively, like if you have the 3 Dawn open after playing Sanji Pudding. We also just kind of need stuff to take, like sometimes we just need to use our Dawn on something before we lose it for doing the Dawn minus and untapping. So sometimes this is just the best card for it, so that helps you there too. We do have like the choices of like Frankie from EB02. We also see like a lot of people playing the 3-drop Zoro, the Nico Robin to be able to get a block and a card draw. Just a lot of different variety of cards for this deck too. So lastly, I think a lot of people are on the Electrical Luna. This has been very strong in this format in particular. The fact that this just kind of gives Purple Luffy another turn at times is really impactful when it's the deck that just says, oh well, I'm going to attack you with 4 more 7Ks next turn, so you hope you're really ready for it. So, and then lastly, Tony Chopper. At the beginning of this format, I kind of like this card, and I think it's so strong. I think most people kind of decided that we can play it at a couple copies if we find the room for it. The fact that it's a blocker that helps us ramp is good. The fact that it can shut off our opponent or leader effect, though, if we're playing against certain opponents who are able to interact with Chopper without proccing without getting rid of it on the board. So like resting it or something just means that this could be in a situation where you're not able to use your leader effect because it technically isn't a straw hat, like at least this specific card for it. So generally speaking, I think there are a lot of different builds, and you guys can check out the other builds that are on the site too if you want to see different inspirations for the green purple Luffy. But I think again, it's a very strong deck, and congratulations to StrawHatsAreCool for their first place finish with this deck. The next up we've got Zoro, so we got Richard's version of Zoro here, and honestly, like it's a new format, right? It's a new format. So what are the good decks? What's going to be able to top Zoro? Zoro with just a very aggressive package, especially against decks that are still kind of figuring out what the format looks like. Nami also has a good contention, which we'll look at Nami in a little bit because it did also get a top 16. But yeah, Zoro is just a really, really solid deck still. It's just like never the worst deck in the game, right? If you are just, again, if people are trying to figure out how to optimize their decks and they're not playing fully optimized decks yet, Zoro is just the best way to kind of punish that kind of format. So we do have a new card, though. We do have the new Chopper from EB02. So Dawn times 2, opponent's turn. This character gets plus 2k power. So generally speaking, this is a little bit better for specifically the Chopper deck because they are able to put a lot of Dawn places. No, Zoro doesn't necessarily do that. But also on play, if your leader has the Straw Hat crew type, give it to one rested Dawn to your leader or one of your characters. So it doesn't have to give it to a Straw Hat type crew character. It just has to be like your leader is a Straw Hat crew type card. So that is kind of the idea there. But just the fact that you can get some additional Dawn in places is great. The fact that, this card also needs 2 Dawn underneath it means that you are able to help get the Dawn there too. It's just another body that you're able to play off of your, not only your 3-drop Chopper, but also your other 3-drop Chopper, your 3.4k Chopper. So which this card is, I think, pretty solid, but it doesn't have a lot of great targets. So this is just de facto the best one now, which is really nice. So I don't have much more to say. I think this deck is still just very obnoxious, very strong, a little bit high rolly. You really are dependent on like how early you get this card on the board and if you're able to take advantage of this card fully. But if you are, you're in a really, really good spot. So lastly, I think Mulligan is strictly the best way to get rid of a Sanji and Pudding. I think that is just a solid, it just like immediately hits what this deck is trying to do, right? It's really easy to be a 6k with Zoro's effect. So being able to bump one of your 5k bodies to 6k for 1 Dawn is great, and then just being able to get rid of a Sanji Pudding or even pressure something by giving it -5 is in a good spot. So not much more to say, but here's Richard's deck. Congratulations for their finish there. Then next up we do have Reiju. So this is honestly not a deck that I always feel like can be topping, but I do think that it can have a good matchup into green and purple Luffy, which is great. We do see a bit of a techier version of this deck with the amount of events that we're running. Specifically, we do see 1 Germa 66, which is not too unusual, 2 Gamma Knives, which I think is great for trading or getting rid of like a Eustass kid. We also have the Gum Gum Lightning. So this is from OP9, Dawn -2, KO up to one of your opponent's characters with 6k power or less. So it doesn't quite hit Sanji Pudding, which is a little unfortunate, but there are a lot of great 6ks that you do want to get rid of, so that is helpful. And like the Dawn -2 is not too impactful for us, so it's really just like a different version of like Top Knot. I think fact that Top Knot bottom decks is a little bit better, and the fact that it also is like 4 or less, sometimes like between 4 or less or 6k power less is a little bit different, but I do think this is still a viable card. And then also 2 copies of Red Rock, which I don't think this is like a staple for this deck right now, but I do think that, it makes sense as like one of the better blue cards to splash in a deck like this one, just because we do get like an absolute removal on something. So I do think Reiju's worst matchup was Teach, and it's definitely, Teach is definitely less present, I think, right now than it was in OP10 with the EB02 meta. I do think that can change immediately with the release of the new star decks, which we do see. We have seen some of the new Teach stuff for that as well. So it's going to be difficult to see if this deck's going to do what's going to do in the next little bit as well. But I think it's still solid. I know a lot of people are just really committed to this deck, and it's really cool to see that commitment pay off for a top finish like this one. So again, this is a build here from Reformed, and congratulations to Reformed for their finish with Reiju. Next up, we've got Bonney, and so Bonney is played by Nell here. We only had 1 copy in the top 16, but I know a lot of people have been testing it with the addition of Honestly, just a really good matchup with green purple, which is really, really nice. We also do get a star deck with this in the next couple of weeks too, so do be on the lookout for those when we get those cards revealed as well. But we do have kind of a different build from Bonney than I've seen lately, right? We do have like some new cards like Tashigi just being a great 2K that helps us protect our Eustass Kid is really strong. But we see like some older cards too. So we do have Pedro. So this is a blocker from OP08. This is for the Carrot Leader, but on KO, get to choose one, rest up to one of your opponent's Dawn cards. Are KO up to one of your opponent's rested characters the cost of 6 or less. So this is actually like an insane effect if you really think about it, right? We do have copies of like the like what is it, the Lucky Roo. Lucky Roo kind of has the same effect, but it doesn't have to be a a rested card, but it only hits 6Ks or less. So the fact that you can play this card out, and then if they have like either Sanji Pudding, or if they have a if they can still marry go out of it, right? It doesn't say original cost of 6 or less, but if they don't marry go correctly or they don't have the card, this is able to trade with Sanji or Pudding as long as it's rested somewhere, or even the secret rare Luffy too. So I think this is like a really solid card. It does get played around by marry go, but I think it's an interesting choice for this. We also do have Uruj, I'd say the more traditional 4-cost blocker for the deck, but still very solid. We also have Basil Hawkins, which I haven't seen this card sleeved up in a while. The fact though that this is a blocker that's a 7K and is difficult to remove is good. So you can rest one of your opponent's characters instead if it would be removed from your opponent's effect. So that's solid. But and then we also have Spiderweb. So up to one of your leaders or characters gets plus 4K power for this battle, and then set up to one of your characters as active. So this really lets you do like a pretty nasty double block with either Basil Hawkins or really any of your other blockers. So, but you generally don't see that card, right? So I imagine a lot of this deck's success was being able to take your opponent by surprise from the cards that you are and or not running. So a really cool build here, and congratulations to Nell for their finish with Bonney. The next up we've got Eustass Kid. So this is the OP10 leader of it. And to kind of wrap up the top 8, right? We do have 2 yellow decks that were able to get an 8-1 finish there. Unfortunately, sorry, not top 8, top 16, but the 8-1s for it. So unfortunately, just bubbling out of the top 8 spots. But really cool to see these 2 decks get into an X1 finish. I think that's really tough to do with these ones. But we got the Eustass Captain Kid. This didn't really get any new stuff from EB02, right? But this is a bit of a different build, I'd say. So the key cards that I don't see generally, we do have the Bonney. So unfortunately, this is not a supernova, which is really unfortunate because Bonney was a supernova, right? Or you know what I mean? Like the fact that it doesn't have that tag is a little stinky, but the fact that this is like another draw 2 and trash 1, since we already run 4 of them with the Basil Hawkins help us, like it's going to be moderately generally easy to get one of those in. But the fact that we also can Dawn ×1, and then it's only your turn, unfortunately, so you can't like block with Basil and then KO it and then get the draw 2 and trash 1, but it does help you if you just have this out and then you have like the 8-drop Kid to be able to get that burn damage. That does help you there. So other than that, I do think that yellow has a good amount of interaction. That we do have a good amount of KO cards with Nami as well as the Damned Punk. I also do think like the vanillas are just really great when we were able to give them blocker and such. And there's just some really good this is just like one of my like interesting decks, right? It's kind of the fact that it's a mix between like burning and blocking, the fact that it has like a lot of flexibility, and sometimes it just like makes it impossible to lose against anything that's not Hody Jones. So a really cool build here, and congratulations to I didn't say it out loud, but to our SussLilBaka who was able to get a 9th place finish with the Eustass Captain Kid. Next up we've got Vegapunk, and this is KingBob's version of the deck here, and it's pretty insane sometimes to see that one card gets printed and then immediately a deck becomes viable or gets so much excitement, and that's exactly what happened with Vegapunk here. So it is aptly a 5-drop Vegapunk card, which on the surface this card looks good. I think the fact that it's a blocker, it has kind of like some mild Rebecca vibes, right? It's a little bit more RNG focused than what Rebecca does, where it's really consistent, but the fact that you are able to get that, the fact that it has a trigger to draw a card is great. You do generally, if you play this late game, you don't have to really worry about like discarding a card, which is really great. And but sometimes you kind of want to put a card into your trash early to be able to get some value off your Pythagoras to get that 3-drop there. So generally, I think this card is good, but then when you compound it with the fact that Rayquaza is secretly one of the best and most annoying cards in this deck, not for the counter effect, but for the trigger effect. So generally speaking, if you just put one of these into your life, your opponent's going to be like, cool, While I attack into it, you'll be like, cool, I'll play Vegapunk. Vegapunk plays out Shaka. Now I have 2 blockers, and still 1 life kind of thing. Or I can get out so many different additional cards. It's just absurd, right? The fact that now that this card, not only like for 1, you get to put this into your life, you get to heal 1. Your opponent has to attack into it, and then when they do, they give you 2 battle cards, or 2 characters onto your board, which is just absurd. So I think a lot of people have to kind of adjust to how obnoxious this deck can be too. We do also have the new Sanji with this card is great. We're always going to be at 2 or less life, so that's going to be fantastic for this card. And then the Eustass Captain Kid for a little bit of burn damage, a little bit of cycle late game, since we do need some help sometimes closing the game. But otherwise, I think this deck is in a pretty good spot. I think it's pretty viable right now. It's really obnoxious to play against. Like, you really have to have a game plan if you're playing against them, but if you do, you do get rewarded for it on the other side. So other than that, I think this is a really cool build, and congratulations to KingBob for their finish with Vegapunk. Then we've got just a couple more builds. We've got Reiju's build of the Rob Lucci here, and I think Lucci's in a really good spot, specifically in this format, because there is like a lot of removal potential. If you get some, removal against Green Purple Luffy, you get super rewarded for it, right? The fact that you can get rid of a 5/7 generally pretty easy without having to like really tech for it is so strong, right? The fact that we have the Guzan, and then we can attack with it with leader effect, and then play Brook, right? So that's just enough. I think we actually need like 1 more, right? 4, 5, 6, yeah. So we need to have like 1 more reduction, which we can do off like a Hina, or even we can play Kobe after attacking with Kuzan, something like that, right? But there are just a lot of ways for us to be able to remove a body like that, which I think is really strong for us. I do think that I've been playing a lot of the Star Deck 14 Luffy with the Navy stuff, but this card is still like just a generically good card, right? I do think there's also some like Navy builds of Lucci that could be around too, so I do like the idea of that. So Sengoku's just strong. And then we do have our top end of Jack, and also just the 10-drop Kuzan, which we generally don't see this card as much, but the fact that this does get rid of a 5 or less or a 6 or less if we attack first with their leader, with no setup, which is just great for you, especially like if you play like Jack on on 7 or sorry on 8, and then it survives, which this card is pretty survival I think in this game. Then you're able to play 10-drop Kuzan, you're able to get rid of a 5 or less, and then an 8 or less with the effect of the Jack as well. So I think that's all very strong, and I think this deck is still in a good spot, even without Ice Age, even without Gecko Moria, even without Ennis Lobby. I think Rob Lucci is still in a viable spot right now. Congratulations to Reij for their finish with the Lucci here. The next up we've got Nami, and I've been seeing a lot of people play a little bit kind of techie versions of this deck. There are a couple cards that I think are kind of worth it. I think Green Purple Luffy is very scary of a deck, so because that does rush us down and can pressure us very cleanly with their 7k attacks most of the time, and the fact that we really can't interact with them in most builds of it means that they can just are super free to set up and do some really, really kind of big attacks and stuff. So I think like the only kind of unusual card or kind of tech card that we see is the Cavendish, right? The fact that this does let us like draw 2 and trash 1 and get some card advantage is good. For playing as Green Purple Luffy, like they just can't interact with this card, so it's a good like investment for that, and lets us kind of bully cards on board sometimes. We also have like Nojiko, right? So this being able to return Sanji Pudding as long as they don't have the Merry Go, I think is worth a couple copies, and there are some other decks that get hit by this, and then just kind of the kind of setup of event cards that we have from there. So we have like our Desert Spada, our Rubber Band, our Gavel, All Stars, White Snake, the Brickfist one of Love Love Mellow, Snake Dance, and the Pilaf. So not reinventing the wheel in any way, but I think Nami is still a pretty viable deck right now, especially when we're playing against people who are still kind of figuring out the best way to play their decks or the best way to construct their decks. Something like Nami or Zoro, where the deck 50 is just solid and you know what you're doing, you can really punish kind of some unoptimal plays at times. So here's the build here. Congratulations to Alex for their finish with Nami. And the finish up, we do have 2 purple Luffys, which we're going to look at both real quick, just because they got 14th and 15th place, I think, respectfully. Right next to each other. So I want to go over both. There's not like a lot for this deck. Obviously, like Purple Straw Hat's got a couple cards, right? I think like Nico Robin is like an okay card for the deck, right? The fact that it's a blocker that we can play off our Luffy Taro, the fact that you're able to help us search for cards, including Giant, is pretty solid. So I think it's a good addition if you want to run it, right? This deck's running a lot more like removal too. Like the fact that we're playing 4 copies of Linlin is a lot, right? So you're able to get rid of like I would assume the 5-drop up Sanji Pudding in like the mirror match if they don't have Mary Go, which is strong. And then just kind of like, I would say this is a moderately standard build. And then we also have like the Uso Hachi, which again, this card's been getting a little bit more valuable, I think. More and more people are playing it as just like another purple Straw Hat 2K that sometimes you can play out a little bit early and get that extra advantage. So there is the build there. And then we also have the build here from Napalm. So this is fwazalaza, and then we also have Napalm X's version of the build here. So there's just like, this is still, I'll say, like the best generic purple deck in the game, in the fact that it, or at least purple ramp deck in the game. The fact that it just, our leader effect list makes it so easy for us to gain 2 Dawn. We have to lose 2 life, but I don't think that's like a really big issue, especially because we draw the card. The fact that we have ways to really take advantage of us getting to that late Dawn, and we have so many blockers. We have like Tony Chopper, we've got Queen. I like having like the single copy of Blast Breath in this deck too. Just lets us have like an additional Gum Gum Giant that we don't have to use as aggressively, which is great. And this is just a really, really good package, which I think Purple Luffy, as long as like OP11 doesn't change, it's still just a very viable deck that I've been seeing a lot of people in Japan kind of use it to interact with the meta in a different way than what we've been seeing. So I don't have much more to say though, but congratulations to fwazalaza and Napalm X for their finishes with Purple Luffy. And I think this deck is still viable in the current format too. So there it is. So anyways, that's going to be it for us. If you guys want to see any of the deck lists that we missed, make sure to check them out on my website, Eggman Events. This is going to be our first EB02 event, but not last one that we're covering. So make sure to hit that like and subscribe if you haven't already. And I'm looking forward to seeing how this format continues to play out. So that's going to be it for us. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you all next time.
Damn it. Damn it.